Welcome to today's edition of Engineering Success Profile Editions. Today we're joined by Laura Hoang, who is a Program Integration Engineer at BAE Systems. Hi Laura, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi, it's great to have you here. Can we start right at the beginning? And what made you choose a career in engineering?
I fell into engineering almost by accident. I didn't know what engineering was when I was a kid. So when I was doing my GCSEs, my mum wanted me to be a pharmacist.
Right.
My dad wasn't really that bothered. He kind of wanted me to just go get married as soon as I was in school. So, he had no real plans for me. Mum wanted me to be a doctor or a pharmacist, and
Right.
I enjoyed the sciences. So when I came to choosing my A-levels, I chose like physics, maths, biology, and chemistry. I couldn't choose which ones I wanted to do, so I did all of them.
Right.
And it was my physics teacher. He was new to the school, and along came this new teacher, and he said, there's this thing called the Engineering Education Scheme, which the EDT, I think the Engineering Development Trust,
Yeah.
they run it. So if anyone's interested, let me know. So add to my other physics teacher, who's always been an advocate for sort of, well, it's an all-girls school. I went to an all-girls school,
Okay.
but he was an advocate for sort of trying to get the girls excited in physics and in science in general. And my maths teacher, and they all went, have you thought about engineering? And when this engineering education scheme sort of opportunity came along, I was like, yeah, sure, let's give it a go. I had no idea what I was doing, so let's give it a go.
Right.
And I ended up really enjoying it. So it was like 6 months on sort of like an after school club, essentially.
Yeah.
And we were paired up with like industry partners and the National Grid. We had engineers from the National Grid come in and tell us a bit about what they do, and then give us sort of a real life problem to solve. So one of the things that they were struggling with was when they're looking for pipes, gas pipes. It's okay when they're metal, but what about the plastic ones? How are you going to detect the plastic ones? So they gave us that challenge, and there were 4 of us in the group, and there was another 4 on another project. And we were given 6 months on this project to think of sort of innovative ideas that we could pitch to these engineers. And they were coming to school every so often, and it shows a little bit more about what the engineering role was like. And I actually really enjoyed it. And I was like, actually, this is good fun. So then I applied to do engineering at university. But I still wasn't like 100% sold, I suppose, because I still didn't really know what it was. I'd seen one part of engineering. And when after we did the engineering education scheme, I found that the EDT also ran a year in industry scheme.
Right.
So I registered on that. I took a gap year before university, and I worked in civil engineering for a company called Halcro.
Right.
And again, I really enjoyed it, and it was a different type of engineering. It wasn't sort of a gas engineer. We looked at sort of the transport planning, which is slightly different, and it was civil engineering. So we looked at bridges and car parks.
Right.
And yeah, it was fun. So I thought, yeah, okay, engineering. And then and I guess that was that. And then went to university, found that BAE Systems offered a sort of an internship kind of scheme.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds cool. And it's a chance, it's an opportunity to be sponsored too.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'll give it a go. If I don't get it, I don't get it. And I got it. And then spent the summer after my first year of uni at BAE. Worked on the Typhoon, Eurofighter Typhoon.
Amazing.
Looking at the electrical power.
Right.
Something I had no idea. I had no idea what I was doing. I got dropped into the deep end. Here, have a look at all these circuit breakers and figure out this. And I was like, oh, okay. And yeah, I guess that was that. And then I was sold completely, 100% sold in engineering.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So your route into engineering was more traditional, as in you did a degree to get to the engineering route.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Loughborough University,
Right.
and I did systems engineering.
Right. Yeah. So your current role is a program integration engineer at BAE. Can you explain a little bit more about what that role actually entails?
Yeah, it's kind of, it doesn't sound like much of anything in a way. My background and my passion is in human factors.
Right.
And previously to this role, I was in cockpit design and training systems design.
Right.
And I've moved into this integration engineer role, which I guess basically it's, so nowadays, well, with BAE Systems, all our products and services are they're complex solutions.
Yeah.
And you need more than one team of like experts on one system to work on. There's lots of different teams, there's lots of different components within the solution. And my role really is looking at the sort of the core engineering services to make it function properly.
Right.
So everything fits together and it works effectively, efficiently, and most importantly, safely.
Yeah.
So all the considerations you've got, you know, if we're going to break it down in sort of like very crude parts, big parts, you've got like, so if you look at like training, flying training, you have the aircraft, so the actual aircraft itself, how that's going to fit into the training part, and how the maintenance people are going to, and the maintenance function are going to fit into well, maintaining the aircraft to be able to make it fit for purpose to train. I'm not an expert in any of those fields, but what my job means is that I have to understand parts of each bit enough for me to make sort of those key decisions to be able to integrate together. And yeah, how I describe it is, if you have a team and you have lots, like, you know, like a big piece of Lego, you know, one of the Lego kits, and you go off and you build your own little parts, so someone's going to bring it together and make it actually look like what you want it to look like.
And that's what you do.
Yeah.
So what do you find the most challenging part of your job?
Document writing.
I
know it sounds really right. I am dyslexic, and so there's a lot of sort of reviewing and writing documentation. We need the documentation to keep a record, you know, audits.
Absolutely.
We're in an industry, the defence industry, we're very heavily regulated, you know, very heavily governed. Everything has to be safe, and so we have to document everything. And my biggest, like for me, the trying to document everything correctly for me, that's the most challenging part of the job.
Right. Yeah. I can understand why. But what do you find the most rewarding part?
So this is a question that I struggle to answer, because there's a lot of rewarding parts of the role.
Right. Okay.
I guess it's the collaboration. So when I talk about talking to all the different stakeholders and the technical leads on their parts, it's not just within engineering. There's lots of communication and working with different functions like project management and commercial, procurement, finance, and the legal team. So it's, I guess, my role, I feel like it's engineering, but it's kind of, there's the people around it is the one of the best parts of the role. So working all the different teams, gaining insight into what their parts to play are as well. And also the fact that you're delivering something that the customer actually is asking for, what they want. And it's kind of so one of the things that I do is sort of the requirements management side of it. So, you know, they've got this requirement, can we satisfy it? We're compliant. Or not. So if we're not, then why not?
So working for a large company like BAE Systems obviously exposes you to lots of different engineering careers, different paths, different positions. Do you think it's important as engineers that we continually evolve and challenge ourselves?
Yes, I think for my personal view, I think everyone has a different view on this as well, because some people quite like being comfortable in their
Absolutely.
zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I personally like being challenged. So I've had 10 different roles within the company.
Right.
And I
Okay.
think the beauty about engineering is that there is something for everyone.
Yeah.
Being in engineering in such a large company, it makes it even easier that I can sort of, I'll be honest, I get bored quite easily. If I don't feel like I'm being challenged enough,
Yeah.
I'll go, what am I doing here? I'm going to go find my
Right.
next challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
being in a big company, it's very easy to go, well, I like the sound of that. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna go and try it for a little bit.
Yeah.
So I know that there's always going to be something there for me to try out. And then maybe one day, I don't want to work on aircraft anymore. And I'll go, well, actually, I want to work on submarines.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that's a big perk about being in a company like BAE Systems, is that there's always something for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And engineering skills are so transferable that
Yeah.
it's not, it really doesn't matter that I guess the only ones I wouldn't be able to look at, like the specialisms,
Oh,
the
yeah.
real
Of course.
technical needs. So if I'm not an aerodynamicist, but then again, I don't really have an interest of being an aerodynamicist.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I wouldn't go for a role like that, because I know my skills won't match. But the majority of
Yeah.
other engineering aspects and their skills, that it's 10 different roles in the company.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, that says it all, doesn't it, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what skills and attributes do you think are needed for a good career in engineering?
I think many people focus on the hard maths and science, and sometimes when I say to people, well, this is what I do, not necessarily as an engineer, because some people don't understand what an engineer does, but
Yeah.
I say I design this and that, and they go, oh, you must be so clever. And I guess the truth is that I'm not, and there's so much more than that to engineering. There's more than just the hard maths and science.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
So things like the softer side of skills, like being able to work in a team,
yeah,
I think is really important. But then equally being able to run with something on your own, sort of independent working too,
yeah,
and then being able to come together as part of a team, being able to think outside the box, coming up with sort of those different ideas and innovative solutions, not being able to challenge, not being afraid to challenge, always asking those awkward questions and
yeah,
always staying curious. I think for me, they're the sort of key sort of attributes that I would say would make a good engineer. I always ask the odd questions, and I've learned not to say that it's an awkward question. I will just outright ask it now.
That's right. Yeah,
So I'll tell you a story about when my first job, my first role within BAE Systems, I had
yeah,
asked about something, and I guess it's not that I don't have a filter, it's that I've not really I wasn't afraid to, and they
absolutely.
and that one question I thought was probably a stupid question, because I mean, I was new,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I probably thought, oh, they're going to think I'm really annoying, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yeah.
But it turned out that it was a good question to ask, because it was something that they had missed.
Right. Okay.
Fresh eyes on this one thing, and I asked the question, what does this do, and why isn't it this way? And they had missed it, and so they went, right, okay, that actually is a good question.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, so that really taught me, like, don't be afraid to ask, and
yeah,
stay curious as well. Why this? Why not this way? And always sort of think about what we could do better.
absolutely. Yeah,
Because there's things that you can be comfortable with one thing, but actually there's other things you can learn from other parts and think, well, we can do this better by doing this. We can improve it by doing this.
yeah, 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 yeah. So I know you do a lot of outreach work, promoting engineering to younger people. Why do you think it's so important for STEM professionals such as yourself to engage with younger people?
I think the biggest thing is actually breaking down those stereotypes.
Yeah.
So some engineers, but not all engineers, do get their hands dirty, like fixing engines.
Yeah.
That's what, or fixing sort of stuff. But not all engineers do that. Equally, not all engineers are computer geeks.
No.
Software engineers. But again, you know, there's a whole there's so many different types of engineers and different types of engineering. And I guess we need that diversity. We need to, so when, I guess it's not just for like the students to reach out to, it's the teachers and parents as well. Sometimes they don't understand what engineering is either, and so sort of changing that perception and showing them that actually it is a really great, it's a fun, exciting career to get into. We need all these different types of engineers, and we need that diversity for different ways of thinking. Different ways of thinking leads to innovative solutions to problems that we didn't know we had. And because like technology is constantly evolving, and it's evolving at such like a fast rate that we don't currently have enough engineers, these innovative thinkers, to keep up. And so the more we can get people thinking about engineering as a good career, the more innovative thinkers and great solutions that we'll have for these problems that we're getting.
Yeah. Yeah, all the time. So what advice would you give somebody who was looking into a career in engineering?
I think going back to some of the stuff that I've sort of been talking about before is that when you say sort of like ask the questions, ask an engineer what it's like. There's a lot of us out there who do this sort of outreach stuff. And I mean, Twitter is a great place to start, for example. Social media is a great place to start.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just to say, you know, actually, I'm thinking about engineering. What sort of advice would you give? And but then at the same time, I would say don't follow the footsteps of someone. You think, oh, that person's a role model, I want to be in that job, I want to be just like them. Every person's path, career path is different. Every journey is different. Just because I did, so you know, if you think my career has been exciting, you don't have to do exactly what I did to get where, you know, what I'm doing now. You have to find out what works for you. University versus apprenticeships, for example, that's a big decision to make. University for everyone, but then apprenticeships are not for everyone. So
no, that's right.
Mainly about finding what you like, how you like to learn, and how you like to do things. So by all means, seek advice and look to all these role models, but don't follow blindly.
That's right. Yeah. And like your own story, you know, we know it's important to promote engineering, enthuse the next generation. So what would you say to somebody who, like yourself, when they were younger, hasn't even thought about engineering as a career? You know, what would your message be to them?
It's like sort of give it a go, look into it. Engineering is fun. Careers in STEM is fun. Also, like I suppose going back to what I was saying before, is that with the technology in the world constantly evolving, constantly changing, we never know what types of engineers that we're going to need in 10 years' time.
No.
And you might be that fit, that perfect person to be able to fix that solution.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, I'm very passionate about engineering.
Yeah.
It's such a great career to have, to be in. It opens so many sort of doors. Like I said, with it being so transferable, there's so many exciting projects that you can work on, and you can really make a difference as well. So you know, right now the greener challenge, you know, net carbon emissions, zero carbon emissions, and sustainability is a huge topic. We don't really have enough engineers right now looking at that, because but then at the same time, the engineers are then upskilling, because they realize the need to be able to look at this, so they're transferring into it. But then we need fresh thinking.
Absolutely,
Come in and look at it from a different perspective, because if the engineers have come from sort of a background and they're sort of almost set in their own ways and processes, sometimes it can be harder to see the bigger picture. So when you bring in like fresh thinking, you shake things up a little bit, and it's always a good thing. It's never bad.
No, that's right.
To bring in sort of new thinking. So that's why. That's why engineering is great.
Laura, that's it. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me.